Congressman Michael McCaul, the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, joining us live this afternoon on the phone. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Sally. Thanks for having me.
Congressman, what can you tell us as far as the investigations of the Austin bombings?
Well, I've been in pretty constant contact with our federal, state, and local law enforcement officials. We've deployed about 500 federal agents to Austin. This is probably the largest federal investigation into a bombing since the Boston bombings. Obviously, the events in Schertz last night are the most recent. It does appear, though, that all 5 of these bombings seem to have similar indicators and signatures, which indicate that this is all coming from the same perpetrators or perpetrators.
What can you tell us about those indicators? Are we talking about nails? Are we talking about materials that you would find in a household? What can you say about those indicators?
Well, I've been told at this point, because it's law enforcement sensitive and it is part of the investigation, not to go into that, but it is, all these devices are very similar. And I think the Schertz one, it was simply mailed from Austin to another Austin address, and it was routed through FedEx through Schertz. So the recipient was not in Schertz, but rather in Austin, which indicates this bomber is still intent on making full circle around the Austin area.
Do you know, have your law enforcement sources told you who that recipient is?
They did not want to go into that for obvious reasons. It's very sensitive. They did tell me, though, that there is 24/7 surveillance pretty much across the city right now. I know, look, I live in Austin. I think there's a lot of anxiety. A lot of people are nervous about this, and rightly so. But they do want to comfort people that, they're working 24/7 around the clock, and the surveillance is pretty intense right now.
What do you mean by 24/7 surveillance?
Well, just in the open public spaces.
Cameras and things like that?
And we also have captured a lot of surveillance video that they are analyzing right now, and that could hopefully lead us to at least what does the perpetrator look like. We don't have motivation right now. It's still very odd. Typically in these bombing cases, if it was ISIS, for instance, they would have probably come out by now and proclaimed that it was them. So we think this is more of a kind of a Unabomber style, anarchist type. But it's really unclear at this point in time.
Well, Congressman, you mentioned ISIS, and it's because you have investigated many cases of terrorism. But terrorism isn't a word that's been used here in Austin with these bombings. Would you classify it as domestic terrorism?
Well, I would say that it's terrorizing the community in Austin. Whether it is under the legal definition of terrorism is really a calculation that the FBI will make when they'll open up the case. Right now, it's been open as a murder case and a bombing cases at the local level with the district attorney. If the FBI sees an international terror connection, then they can open it in that fashion, or they could open it up as a domestic terrorism case. They have not done that yet, but I can't rule that out as a possibility.
Congressman, I want to go back to this idea of the surveillance, and you mentioned that perhaps they're getting an idea of an appearance. Have you been told that they have a possible suspect on camera somewhere?
No, I think they have some suspicious individuals that they're trying to do some sort of enhancements on, but they have not come up with a individual as of yet. But they have quite a bit of footage that they are, investigating, going through as I speak. And 500 agents. I worked in the U.S. Attorney Office there in Austin as a chief of counterterrorism and national security. I've never seen 500 agents deployed to a scene like this. So it shows you sort of the gravity of this situation and how serious the federal government's taking this.
So this would be probably the most massive investigation happening right now in our country?
Well, right now, of course, yeah. And I think it's the most massive bombing investigation probably since the Boston bombings.
And because this is personal for you, because it is literally close to home, because you live here in Austin, What goes through your head when you hear about this latest explosion in Schertz? What goes through your head, and then what's the first thing you do?
Well, it's you know, it's more emotional for me. It's more personal. It's my hometown, and I guess if it could happen in Austin, it could happen anywhere. I don't think anybody in Austin thought this could happen in our town, in our hometown. And we see this happening in New York, you know, quite a bit, you know, the larger cities. But now that this happened in Austin, you know, of course, I've seen it happen in San Bernardino and Chattanooga and other places that were smaller cities. But I think that this is one of the most mysterious and kind of eerie situations, because it's hard to tell where and when he will strike or she will strike next. And it almost reminds me of the sniper attacks that I witnessed on the East Coast after 9/11.
Sure.
That were so random, and you never knew where they were going to pop up and who they would be shooting at. And it's very hard to predict that. And so I guess the best comfort I can give to you know, the people of Austin and my friends is that you know, we're doing everything we can to find that person.
You mentioned your experience in counterterrorism and in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Just going back to that, how unusual is it to have a situation where somebody is planting these bombs, but they're not making any ideological statements? They're not letting anybody know why. Their victims appear to be random, at least on the surface. In your experience, wouldn't somebody normally have tried to send a message at this point to let everybody know why they're doing what they're doing?
And I think that's a great point. That's what's most baffling about this case, is that, you know, where there's a Unabomber who had a manifesto. Most of these cases, bombing cases or terror cases, there's always ISIS will typically take credit for it, or the bomber, like the Unabomber, will have a manifesto. I know the Austin police chief, he and I talked yesterday. They had a press conference hoping to get the individual to sort of come out publicly as to why he's doing this. Mm-hmm. And yet the only response that we're getting is more bombings.
Yeah.
So what is it going to take, Congressman? What do you think is going to take to finally catch this person before he strikes again?
Well, typically, yeah, I think we got some pretty good evidence out of Schertz. Hopefully we can get some fingerprints. That would be very telling if we can get fingerprints from the device. And I think surveillance video footage, if this happens again, hopefully we can apprehend them. The leads are always important. If anybody has any leads with respect to this individual, you know, call the Austin Police Department. That's you know, the Unabomber was turned in by his own family,
right?
Yeah.
And this could be a family member knowing that it's their relative, or leads are very important. We've had several leads. I don't see any of those very credible at this point in time, but this is a very. I just hope we can apprehend them before the next one goes off.
Congressman, do you get the sense in what you've been briefed by law enforcement with this latest explosion happening through FedEx and the amount of evidence that comes to that we're now closer to finding this person than we have been after the previous explosions?
I think so. I think we have more evidence. We have more surveillance footage. We have now we have a package. We have an address, and we may have fingerprints. All those things can help close the loop on this investigation. So I think we are getting closer to him. And like I mentioned, to have 500 federal agents in Austin, in addition to the DPS troopers, Austin Police, San Antonio Police, you know, Houston. I mean, this is a concerted effort to close the you know, the loop on this guy, and the noose on him, I should say, and apprehend him.
And Congressman, a reporter who is out near the location where it's believed that the packages were sent from, one of these FedEx retail stores, she said she saw FBI agents measuring the doorway in that store. Based on your experience working in the attorney's office, would that be trying to gauge someone's height based on surveillance video?
Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Congressman, before we let you go, I hear just the emotion in your voice, even if it is over the phone. Is that is that fear or is that sadness? Where is that coming from?
Yeah, I'm usually the guy that speaks on national TV, very calm and cool and collected about terror events, including the Boston bombing. I think this one's rattling me a little bit more personally, just because I know I live there, and I have friends of friends who know some of the victims, and so this one really hits close to home. And I'm hopefully going to be coming back home to Austin soon, and I'm doing everything within my power, working with federal law enforcement to bring this guy to justice.
Some of the victims from the Southwest Austin location, or from which location?
Yeah, from the Southwest Austin location.
Well, our hearts and our prayers are extended to you and your friends and all who know the victims as well.
Thank you.
All right, Congressman Michael McCaul, thank you very much. We appreciate your insight on this. Also, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, we'd spoken with him earlier, and he had confirmed some of these details, too, about the packages having been sent from, or one of them from Austin to Schertz and back to Austin. Let's go out to Chris Davis, who is live at that FedEx facility in Schertz, where that investigation has now stretched more than 12 hours long. Chris, what can you tell us?
Well, John and Sally, the police are really shrinking the scene at this point around this FedEx facility here in Schertz. It's that brown building you can see here behind me. Police had this, the roads leading up to it completely blocked off throughout the morning. They have since moved, and traffic is flowing through there. Again, up in that parking lot near the facility there, the FBI and the ATF are investigating. Schertz police say the area is now secure. Now, the package, we're told, was on a conveyor belt when it exploded around 12:30 this morning. Fortunately, no one was seriously hurt. And we also know a second suspicious package made it into FedEx's delivery system. A source briefed on the investigation tells NBC News that one made it to a distribution center in Austin. Now, the fact that they're going through these facilities means investigators should be able to track them, and that's why Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton tells KXAN he thinks police will find whoever was supposed to get the packages soon. He also hopes it'll lead to whoever sent them.